Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russian airstrikes have killed at least 2 people in the capital, Kyiv, and 1 person in the city of Mykolaiv. The attacks targeted several other cities as well. The Ukrainian army says its air defenses shot down 29 missiles and 15 drones. Parts of the city have been affected by power cuts. And the attack comes as EU diplomacy chief Josep Borrell is visiting the capital. So we can get the very latest from our correspondent, Nick Connolly in Kyiv. Nick, what more can you tell us about this attack on Kyiv?
It was a very loud morning here in Kyiv, especially in the center. You could hear the interceptor missiles at about 7 local time. Even if you hadn't gone down to the kind of air bunkers or down to your cellar or even into your bathroom, as is the advice here, you could definitely feel that danger. It did then pass after a couple of hours, but certainly we're seeing that Russia is having to build up stocks of missiles to do very complicated attacks because Ukraine's air defenses are now so solid and so effective that otherwise basically everything got shot down. We've heard from the Ukrainian militaries, they say about 2/3 of targets were intercepted, but as you mentioned, it was still enough to cause considerable damage. We're now hearing about 4 casualties in Kyiv and dozens of wounded. Parts of the city were without power and heating for quite some time. So that is a very kind of stark reminder, especially to Josep Borrell visiting Kyiv here, that the threat to Kyiv and other parts of the country is still very real.
Exactly. He's there to discuss military aid and financial support for Ukraine. How important do you think Borrell's visit is?
I think it's definitely more important for the Ukrainian side than it would have been a year ago, especially in a situation where the US is basically hamstrung by internal political tensions and games, and US help is really not a given anymore, at least in any kind of reliable time frame. So we've heard of 50 billion euros that the EU is promising over the next 4 years. It is a lot. It's definitely more than Ukraine needs to make up its budget shortfall in 2024. But if you divide it down over those 4 years, it's not going to be enough to fill that void left by American aid being delayed. So there's obviously going to be lots of lobbying behind closed doors to get more money and to get it faster. As for weapons, the EU had promised 1 million artillery shells for Ukraine till March of this year. It seems like they're just about able to provide half that number. Part of that is because the EU, for kind of internal economic reasons, said we would only buy those artillery shells within the EU and not buy them from countries like Turkey or South Korea. That's coming in for a lot of criticism, and there's a hope that the EU will speed up and send its money elsewhere to make sure Ukraine's army gets that support. But certainly Josep Borrell and that EU support, which is pretty steadfast from him and Ursula von der Leyen, now of great importance.
Nick Connolly for us in Kyiv. Thank you as always.